Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Islam Makhachev did an interview today with ESPN where he mainly talked about a future title shot against Charles Oliveira at the end of 2022. And I feel like there's so much to discuss with the entire lightweight title picture that I wanted to make a video talking about it. But this is mainly going to be about the potential Charles Oliveira Islam Makhachev matchup. I've made different videos covering a lot of these topics in the past, but I wanted to make a new video just with all these different things combined into one video. I'm going to talk about what's next for Charles Oliveira. I'm going to talk about a potential Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev matchup and how compelling it is. I'm going to talk about, does Islam Makhachev even deserve a title shot? There's been a lot of talk about that. I'm also going to talk about Beneil Dariush and where he fits into all this. I'm also going to talk about Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev's win streak. Oliveira has an 11-fight win streak. Islam Makhachev has a 10-fight win streak. I'm going to talk about how they stack up against each other. I'm also going to talk about how Islam Makhachev potentially screwed himself out of a title shot against Charles Oliveira about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago or so. And I'm also going to talk about how does Charles Oliveira's resume stack up against Khabib Nurmagomedov's, because there's been a lot of talk about that as well, and I want to get my opinion out there, and I just thought this was a great idea for a potential video. So first off, the lightweight title picture. So right now, you look at the lightweight title picture, you have no champion. But in all reality, Charles Oliveira is the lightweight champion. He missed by 0.5 of a pound before he fought Justin Gaethje, so the UFC stripped him. It wasn't technically a title defense. He went out there, he dropped Justin Gaethje in the first round and choked him out. And he wins another impressive matchup to extend his streak to 11 fights. And I know now technically he's not the champion, but he's only not the champion. I've talked about this in the past. He's only not the champion on the UFC's website. Charles Oliveira, in the fans' minds, in the media's minds, and also in the other lightweight fighters' minds, is the UFC lightweight champion. So that's irrelevant. So he beats Justin Gaethje, now his second title defense, in my opinion, even though if you want to go off technicalities, really wasn't a title defense. He just beat Justin Gaethje. Now it's what's next for Charles Oliveira. And what's next for Charles Oliveira should be, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, it should be Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. You look at the layout of the division. You have Justin Gaethje, he just defeated in the first round. You have Dustin Poirier, who he just defeated by stoppage, I think in the third round back in December. So neither one of those guys are getting a shot. And then you have Michael Chandler, who he just defeated last May. I think that would be a compelling rematch, but at the same time, Chandler's got one win since then. I don't think people are clamoring for that, especially when you have a guy like Islam Makhachev sitting at number 4 in the potential rankings. And stylistically, and I've talked about this a lot, stylistically, this is a very compelling matchup. And actually, I'm going to talk about it in a minute. Islam Makhachev dropped some hints in the interview about his potential game plan going up against Charles Oliveira. And why I find this fight so compelling is you have a guy in Charles Oliveira who's ever evolving, getting better with every single fight. The guy has really good striking. He has a little bit of striking defense deficiencies where he's constantly getting clipped, but he has very good striking offense. He has very good pressure. He has good power, and he also has deadly jiu-jitsu and submission game. He's constantly submitting guys. You've seen what happened in the Justin Gaethje fight. Even when Justin Gaethje hurt him, dropped him, did not follow him to the ground. When he hurt Dustin Poirier, he did not want to, or when Dustin Poirier hurt him, Dustin did not want to follow him to the ground for fear of getting submitted. So what makes the Islam Makhachev fight so compelling is because, in my opinion, Charles Oliveira is a far superior striker. And Islam Makhachev's game is grappling and wrestling heavy, similar to Khabib's game. He wants to take you down, ground and pound you, look for a potential TKO finish with ground and pound, or he wants to use the ground and pound to set up a potential submission. And with a guy like Charles Oliveira has the most submissions in the UFC, I think it'll be really interesting the potential game plan that Islam Makhachev would go into this fight with, because I don't see him having a lot of success on the feet with Charles Oliveira. But we have seen Charles Oliveira ground and pound finished before. We have seen him controlled on the ground before, but that's been a long while ago. And I'm curious, can Islam Makhachev be the guy to do that? And this is where we get into, does Islam Makhachev deserve the lightweight title shot? So if you look at Islam Makhachev, he's on a 10-fight win streak. And it's not the best 10-fight win streak. He would be undefeated in MMA, but he got KO'd by Adriano Martins back in 2015. That really doesn't matter. Since then, he's gone on a 10-fight win streak. He has a win over Arman Tsarukyan, which I believe is probably the best win on his resume. He has a decent win over Drew Dober, a decent win over Thiago Moises, and then he has a win over Dan Hooker back at UFC 267, which was October of last year. One of his more recent wins where he submitted him, he dominated him in the first round. And then his most recent win was where he took Bobby Green down and dominated him in the first round as well, finished him via TKO. And in both of those most recent fights, both of those opponents came in on short notice. So it kind of devalues the win for Islam Makhachev, even though it's not really his fault. But you have two guys who are coming in on short notice against a stylistic nightmare matchup like Islam Makhachev. It does devalue the win. And you look through that 10-fight win streak, it's not the greatest. I mentioned all the legitimate names, Arman Tsarukyan, which is a solid win. That was back in 2019. And again, I think that's his best win. I think Thiago Moises was underrated. That was a solid win as well. But again, you start to look, Dan Hooker short notice, Bobby Green short notice. But the way I look at it is, you look at his 10-fight win streak, and then you start to look at the lightweight division. Who deserves it more than Islam Makhachev? There's nobody. Dustin already lost. Justin already lost. Chandler already lost. You could start to say Beneil Dariush, but Beneil Dariush is still healing up from an injury. He said maybe he could fight in the fall. And I get that Islam Makhachev was supposed to fight Beneil Dariush, but at the end of the day, it didn't happen. And the people who constantly talk about Islam Makhachev hasn't fought anyone good yet, I get it. I understand. I would have liked to seen him fight an RDA, fight a Beneil Dariush. But at the end of the day, a lot of these fights haven't happened, and they haven't necessarily been his fault. Beneil Dariush got injured. RDA got injured a couple times. I know Islam pulled out of one of the RDA fights. I think it was scheduled 3 times. So it's not necessarily Makhachev's fault. And I get it that he hasn't beat the best competition in his 10-fight win streak. But at the end of the day, there's literally nobody else to give it to. You're not going to give it to Dos Anjos. You're not going to give it to Gillespie. You're not going to give it to Conor McGregor. You're not giving it to Tony Ferguson. So who else are you giving it to? Beneil Dariush is injured. We don't even know when he's going to return. Maybe fall, maybe winter, which could kind of fall in line. But Beneil Dariush's win streak is kind of similar as well. Beneil Dariush's best win is Tony Ferguson, which I rate very highly. But Tony Ferguson is kind of on the decline right now. And also Beneil Dariush, I think he has a 7-fight win streak compared to Islam's 10-fight win streak. And also another thing I think you have to look at is the dominance in which Islam Makhachev is winning. And also the stylistic matchup between Oliveira and Makhachev, because I think it's super compelling. And that's why I think Islam Makhachev does deserve the title shot. There's nobody else getting skipped over in favor of Makhachev who has a better claim to it. I thought Justin Gaethje, even with the 1 win over Chandler, considering he was just the interim lightweight champion, his only loss to Khabib was in recent memory was to Khabib. So I thought Gaethje deserved it more than Makhachev, and Gaethje already got a shot, at UFC 274, and he lost, and he got dominated, in the grappling exchanges and got submitted with ease. And the Islam Makhachev Charles Oliveira fight is so compelling. I think it's top 3 most compelling fights the UFC can make right now. And I talked about this recently. The only other fights that come to mind right now that for me are more compelling than Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira would be Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev, as well as Francis Ngannou versus John Jones. Islam Makhachev, Charles Oliveira is right up there in that discussion. So let's talk about how Islam Makhachev might have potentially screwed himself out of a title shot, because I feel like a lot of people forget about what happened. So Islam fought Bobby Green right before UFC 272. At UFC 272, RDA was supposed to fight Rafael Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev had to pull out of that fight. They looked for a replacement opponent for RDA. Islam Makhachev volunteered online. Well, the UFC wanted to make that fight. They thought they had the fight. And then Islam Makhachev said, never mind. I don't know if he talked to his coaches, talked to his manager. For whatever reason, he decided, you know what? I'm not taking this fight. And I don't necessarily blame him for not taking that fight, but he should have kept his mouth shut. Because now it appears that Dana White was made angry by that. And we know how Dana White is. And it seemed like in all the interviews that Dana White gave, he said, you know what? We're going to wait till Beneil Dariush heals up, and we're going to make the Islam Makhachev Beneil Dariush fight. Where before it kind of seemed like he was leaning towards giving Islam Makhachev the next title shot against Charles Oliveira, or technically now it would be for the vacant belt. So I'm wondering now if just out of spite, Dana White is going to wait for Beneil Dariush to heal up and have Islam Makhachev fight him maybe in the fall of this year if Beneil Dariush can return then. And Oliveira said he doesn't want to fight till probably December. So if Islam can go out there and get a win in the fall against Dariush, then fight Oliveira in December. But I just feel like there's too many variables there. We don't know, even if Dariush wins, he should be getting the next shot. But we don't know, what kind of damage they could come out of that fight with. They might not be able to fight for 6 months. They could blow out their knee. Look what just happened to Rakic. I know he lost, but you get the point. I don't think we should risk having the champion, in my opinion, Charles Oliveira, sit out because one of these guys got injured in that fight. It's just too close, If it was this summer, okay, I would say book it because then at least you have 5-6 months for them to heal up and then get a proper training camp. But I really think that there's a potential chance that Dana White could do that. Okay, let's talk about the interview that Islam Makhachev did today with ESPN. Because he said a couple, interesting things, and then he said something that was really kind of laughable. He was talking about Charles Oliveira's win streak and basically trashing it and comparing it to his. Now, in his defense, he did say, oh, well, Charles Oliveira's win streak before the belt. But, he was basically talking about his win streak as a whole, too. You were just clowning everybody's beat. You can't ignore his 3 most recent opponents. And he was saying, oh, he beat Tony Ferguson past his prime. He beat Kevin Lee past his prime. Let me tell you this right now. You subtract Arman Tsarukyan from Islam Makhachev's resume. In my opinion, the Tony Ferguson win is for Charles Oliveira, and the domination of Tony Ferguson was better than anybody on Islam Makhachev's resume. And that's if you minus Arman Tsarukyan. And Arman Tsarukyan was still very young in that fight. I think it might have even been his UFC debut. So Tsarukyan has gotten much better since that fight. So I'm almost giving Islam too much credit for that one. And that was a very competitive, close fight. Then you start to look, okay, Kevin Lee. I know Kevin Lee, that maybe the win hasn't aged so well. But Kevin Lee at one point in time, and he's super inconsistent, sometimes he looked like a world-class, elite-level fighter, and other times, he looked terrible. And in that fight against Oliveira, he looked pretty good, and he got submitted by Charles Oliveira. I still think that's a solid win. But then you start to look at his 3 most recent wins. Michael Chandler, a great win, TKO'd him in the second round. Dustin Poirier, one of the best lightweights in the world, has one of the best resumes in the lightweight division. He beat him in the 3rd round by stoppage. And then most recently, Justin Gaethje, one of the best lightweights in the world, one of the best strikers in the world, beats him in the 1st round. To get Justin Gaethje out of there in the 1st round, super impressive. Charles Oliveira did it faster than Khabib. So to even start comparing resumes, and he started bragging about Drew Dober, Thiago Moises, Dan Hooker. Again, these are decent wins. But when you start looking at Oliveira's most recent opponents, it just doesn't stack up. It does not compare. Charles Oliveira has a far superior resume to Islam Makhachev. And another thing he said in the interview, and this is almost like the Charles Oliveira curse at this point. Whenever somebody mentions, oh, Charles Oliveira is a quitter, and Islam Makhachev said, I'm going to make Charles Oliveira quit. We've seen what happened when Gaethje mentioned it. We've seen what happened when Chandler mentioned it. This is like the Charles Oliveira curse at this point. You should not be saying this at all because you're just going to end up eating your words if you end up losing. Imagine if Charles Oliveira ends up submitting him. So another thing that he said in the interview was his strategy against Charles Oliveira, which I thought was really interesting because I always wondered with Charles Oliveira's amazing submission game in jiu-jitsu, how is Islam Makhachev going to attack this fight? Is he going to try to fight him in the clinch? Is he going to try to strike with him? Is he going to try to take him down and control him on the ground? And he said, and I thought this was the case, but I wasn't 100% sure. He said he's going to take Charles Oliveira down and beat him up on the ground and make him quit. So we know Islam's game. We know he's going to come in. He's going to take Oliveira down and try to ground and pound him and look for a potential submission finish. He even said that in the interview as well. I think that's very interesting. Charles Oliveira is very dangerous off his back. And imagine if he's able to submit Islam Makhachev. What an amazing win that would be. And a great mark on Charles Oliveira's resume. And it's going to suck because technically there's going to be no title defenses outside of the Dustin Poirier fight if he beats Islam. Because if he beats Islam, it's going to be for the vacant lightweight title. The Gaethje wasn't technically a title defense. So it's going to be a weird situation as far as what we're going to talk about in a minute. And that's, is Charles Oliveira the lightweight GOAT with a win over Islam Makhachev? But I thought that was very interesting that Makhachev said, you know what, I'm going to try to take him down, beat him at his own game. And he said if he fought Charles Oliveira 100 times, Charles Oliveira would not submit him one time, which I mean, he's super confident in that. I would not be as confident in that if I was Islam Makhachev. He says he wants to fight him in Abu Dhabi, which the event in Abu Dhabi is taking place in October. And I think this is a little bit unfair because Abu Dhabi is almost like home turf for Islam Makhachev. You know, it's closer to him. He's going to be the fan favorite there. Khabib always fought in Abu Dhabi. You know, Islam's Muslim. It's a majority Muslim population there. So, of course, he's going to be the fan favorite. Charles Oliveira has had nothing but exciting fights. Charles Oliveira has been a great champion outside of the 0.5 weight miss. Charles Oliveira went to Justin Gaethje's home state and fought him. He went to Texas and fought Chandler. He went to Las Vegas and fought Dustin Poirier. It is time for the UFC to do a big event in Brazil, and I want to see Islam Makhachev go to Brazil and fight Charles Oliveira for that technically vacant lightweight title. I think that'd be super interesting, and I think the UFC should make that at the end of this year. I think that's the fight they have to make. I don't think I won't entertain any other options at this point. That's the fight I need to see, and I think a lot of fans would agree with me. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, because there's constant comparisons, Charles Oliveira, Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is the GOAT? You look at Charles Oliveira's resume, 2 of his best wins are Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. 2 of Khabib's best wins are the 2 same wins. And I truly believe that right now the discussion is very, very close. And if Oliveira goes out there and beats Islam Makhachev, and let's say he beats him by stoppage, I believe Charles Oliveira has taken over the spot for lightweight GOAT. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, he has, losses. He has 8 losses, Khabib is 29-0. Khabib, early on in his career, fought a lot of trash cans, I can go 15-0 beating up 10-year-old kids, but that doesn't mean I'm the greatest fighter in the world. So I think that 29-0, and I'm a massive Khabib fan. He's one of my favorite fighters. I own his autograph. I'm not a Khabib hater. I'm not an Islam hater. But you start looking at some of those early fights, and it's not against the best competition. And it doesn't matter in MMA if you lose, as long as you keep improving. And then look at Oliveira. He reeled off this nasty win streak. What if he wins his next however many fights it takes him to go on a 29-fight win streak? Well, would that be good enough then? No. I truly believe for the people who are going to say Khabib's the GOAT no matter what, I think Oliveira could defend his belt. I guess, I know it's vacant, but he could win his next 5 fights against the best possible competition. And the Khabib fans would still say, oh, well, Khabib's 29-0, so he's better. I think you have to look at strength of schedule. I get that Oliveira, before maybe his last 3-4 fights, wasn't the best competition, but he's been in the UFC for so long, and he's fought so many guys, and especially as early as he came into the UFC, he was bound to lose at that young age. But the fact of the matter is he's gotten better and better, and he's improved, and he's beating elite competition now, and he's having some serious sustained dominance. And I think that's most important. And maybe if Khabib would have stuck around, maybe he would have reeled off a couple more title defenses, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation yet. But we are, because Khabib retired. And I think if Oliveira beats Islam Makhachev, I believe that Oliveira will overtake Khabib in the UFC lightweight GOAT conversation. Now, one last thing I'm going to talk about before I end this video is a potential Khabib Nurmagomedov Charles Oliveira fight, because a lot of people are asking if Charles Oliveira beats Islam Makhachev, will it lure Khabib Nurmagomedov out of retirement? I don't believe it will. It's possible. I think if anything was going to lure him out, it's going to be that, but I don't think it's going to happen. And personally, I've told you guys a bunch of times, if I had to give a prediction on Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Charles Oliveira, that is a close fight. But I think Khabib probably gets it done. So there's an early prediction on that. As far as an early prediction for Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, I'm going Charles Oliveira. I'll do a full breakdown and prediction as we get closer. If the fight does get announced and once it's official, the week of the fight, I'll put out a full breakdown and prediction. But as of right now, there's my early prediction for those 2 potential lightweight fights. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.